I wonder if you think they're a little bit naive in this game.
You know, the word I would use right off the top before we start talking about Arsenal, I would use unlucky. Game's about details. I've been in this game for too long, right? I mean, Saka puts away the penalty, done and dusted. We're not having this conversation. And it's as simple as that. And, you know, I'm not using this as an excuse, but that's sometimes how the games go. Did they lose control in both of those games? Yes. I mean, they dominated, absolutely dominated Liverpool at Anfield and absolutely dominated early on against West Ham with 2-0. So, do they get a little bit cocky? Does the subconscious come into the game? Absolutely. But peak and valleys, that's the name of the game. And that's going to happen, right? To the best teams in the world. So I think when the tide turned against them a little bit and then came that penalty, they just got to put that away. It doesn't matter. I know that everybody misses penalty. I've listened to Arteta. I've listened to Pep Guardiola, Bayern Munich, and all the best players in the world that have missed it. But the bottom line is, you know, that's the one that you put away, and we're not having this conversation. So that's what I would say. Does that? I think, yeah, inexperience plays a big role. Pressure plays a big role. Nobody's gonna say that. Remember last week, I haven't given away who's going to win it. You know, for a simple fact that I've said that Manchester City almost never lose control of games. That's the difference between Arsenal and Manchester City. Now, there's been some games where Manchester City maybe weren't at their best, but they keep possession of the ball. And if they don't win, it's because they've created a million chances and somehow couldn't get through, right? And Arsenal had control of the game, but couldn't keep it. That's the difference between the two sides.
Janusz, I love that you say, and I still haven't given away who's going to win it, as if you've got an answer. The fact is you don't have an answer yet. I will be pushing you this week, so just be ready for it. I want to talk about the two penalties. Now, obviously, there was the missed penalty for Saka, but there was the West Ham penalty earlier as well. And I wonder, psychologically, which one was more damaging? Had that first penalty with West Ham getting back into it psychologically affected Arsenal, which then had a knock-on effect for what followed?
No, the first one shouldn't, right? Because when you dominate like that and it's not from the run of play, it's a penalty, it's a mistake, it's an obvious mistake. Everybody knew it. It does happen, right? It's not that, you know, and I think at that time, if you remember, West Ham were kind of coming into it just a little bit. But no, I don't think that psychology would have affected that. I think that the one missed by Saka created that uncertainty, right? That's when you say, oh, here we go again after Liverpool game, right? The crowd's getting into it and West Ham all of a sudden is coming into the game. So no, I don't think the first one to make it 2-1 made Arsenal nervous. Certainly the missed one by Saka did, because A, you expect him to put that away, and B, he himself didn't have a really good game. One of the few players that I didn't think was, you know, on the level of everybody else.
So why is that? Is it pressure? Because there's been a big debate, even among our ESPNFC panelists, as to whether the pressure's getting to them. Others are saying, no, it's not so much the pressure that we saw here. What do you think it is?
I think it is the pressure. I think it's the realization of you know, we're getting close, and the game of truth is coming, and let's not forget about that. The players will think about that, right? They want to get into that game in best position possible, and when everything works your way, when you think, my goodness, this is easy, that's where silly mistakes happen. And then, you know, I don't necessarily think that it's that they're young, but I still think, and I've said it before, that I don't think that they have that true leader, you know, that Casemiro in the center of the pitch, that Rodri in the center pitch. Thomas Partey can possibly be the one, but I don't think he will be. He's going to be a great player. There's some very good games that he's played, but he doesn't come across to me like a leader. Xhaka, I think, it's been better since they've taken away that leadership ability or quality from him, right? Because remember how he played when he was the captain and everything was on his shoulders. So, you know, Odegaard as the captain, I don't look at him in the same way as I look at Casemiro and Rodri. That part, maybe that one player or two players, maybe somebody, you know, at the back, that's still up there. They still haven't developed that one massive personality that when the times are tough takes over and settles the team. They don't have that.
So it's obviously not the most ideal situation, but it's probably fair to say the leader is Mikel Arteta right now. And unfortunately, he's not on the pitch. With what we saw in this game, you've just mentioned Bukayo Saka as well, not looking himself. Which player needs an arm around him the most going forward to ensure that Arsenal get back to winning ways?
Ooh, I still think, yeah, but I don't think if he needs one, but I do think that Odegaard plays an unbelievable role on that team. I still think he makes the team tick. He's just going to be more consistent throughout the game. I mean, he's the sort of player that even if it doesn't seem like he's playing great, he still contributes. I mean, his vision, his passing, defensive ability, pretty good. But I think he's going to decide that. We've seen Gabriel Jesus, coming in, scoring again. I mean, he's looking just as good as he did before his injury as well. So look, this is this sort of Leicester City moment. Although, I mean, I'm not putting them in the same situation because Arsenal are 3 or 4 or 5 times better than that Leicester City team was. But again, they have to deal with Manchester City, something that Leicester City at that time didn't have to deal with.
So we talked about, you said at the top they were unlucky. Last week I asked you if they missed Saliba. Would you say that they missed him this week, or do you still stay firm on what you said last week?
I think they have. Look, I mean, that combination between Gabriel and Saliba was good. He gives you that extra pace. As I've said, Holding was good against Liverpool. I thought he had a pretty good game. Indifferent one here. I think Saliba with his pace would have helped, but I think you never want to break up the central pairing if you can help it. And those two have a great understanding. So he would have helped. Probably Zinchenko was the bigger loss for them, right? Because he seems like if there's a leader, or at least he tries to. And you saw, the pictures before the game when he was on the pitch talking to the players. I think in our broadcast, we've seen Zinchenko in the stands probably 4 or 5 or 6 times, which tells you everything, how important he may be to this team. So maybe I forgot about him when I was talking about the leadership, because as you saw, Tierney at fault on that second goal. I mean, not the only one, but at fault. Didn't look great. Obviously didn't play for a long time. You saw him coming off because he was cramping up. He was really asking, I don't want to say begging for a substitution, but there was a moment late where he really needed to be off the pitch.
All right. So you know what I did see though, and I wondered if you saw it too. After Arsenal's second goal, they got into a bit of a huddle, and I did see Granit Xhaka talking to them, and that did suggest there might be something that's a bit of leadership, things he'd spotted. Did you see that?
I did see that, and as I said, I mean, he was the captain. Obviously, he's a senior player on that team, so you need to settle things down, and I think that's a good sign. That's something that wasn't forced. I think it was a realization from not just Xhaka, but probably from everybody that things aren't working. And look, I mean, look how far this team has gotten, right? I mean, it's almost I hear things and I listen to some other people saying, well, even if they finish second, it'll be a great season. Of course it will be, but you don't know when this is going to come around, and if this chance is going to come around again. So I think they see what's happening here. And oh, by the way, I'm not ruling them out. I really am not. I was really, when it was 2-0, I was ready to say, believe it or not, that I think Arsenal is going to see this through. And the reason for that, and I'm maybe less optimistic, the reason for that is, look, I mean, they're going to beat Southampton. And they're going to go into the game of truth 7 points ahead, and could have been 9. Had it been 9, I don't care if City had 2 games in hand. That's a massive pressure, and I think that would have favored Arsenal. I still think that if Arsenal beat Southampton, I think they go to the Emirates and think to themselves, look, if we don't lose here, we're the champions.
Okay, so we have to still wait until that game to get an answer from you.
Well, I think everybody's going to wait. I don't think you're going to see one normal person do that before you see that game. I've hinted to you, my money is still on Manchester City as it stands. I mean, this is as close as you're going to get. Not that I want to track back, but my favorites are still Manchester City. That's pretty close, no?
Well, so why are they still your favorites?
Well, because Arsenal are now in a frame of mind, where they were 2 up in 2 games and drew games. They dropped 4 points. I mean, if you look at form, as I told you, right? I mean, look what Manchester City are doing. 10, 11 games straight, 6. I mean, this is the time of the season where Manchester City do that. On top of that, they have a player that's going to score 100 goals this season. I mean, we were laughing. Our very first show, you asked me, I think, if he's going to score 40 goals. I don't remember if this was a season or Premier League season, but I thought you were crazy. and look where we are here. So of course Manchester City are my favorites because they've done it before, unlike Arsenal, recent history. I mean, Manchester City has been the best team, over the last 6, 7, 8 years. The confidence beating beating Bayern Munich 3-0, and now probably beating Sheffield United on the weekend. So yeah, I mean, I have to look at Manchester City as a better team, better squad, more experienced team that ultimately may see this through. So I'm going to come close, but I'll give Arsenal a chance. If they beat Southampton, this is going to be something.
Hang on. You said if they beat Southampton and then they go and take a point at least at the Etihad. So even after the Southampton game, might we get a proper answer from you?
This is my point. They're going to go 7 points if they beat Southampton. If they go to the Etihad and get a point there, Arsenal will win the title.
Okay. Let's talk about.
It's a big game. I mean, look, here I am. So we can, I'm going to say Manchester City going to win it. Just so we get some people going crazy at Janusz. But no, I have zero issues given my opinion who's going to win it, because I can backtrack, and this is television, YouTube, whatever you want to call it, but it really isn't. I don't think that anybody can explain to me factually why one or the other is going to win it until we play that game at the Etihad.
Okay, you've said it now though. So right now, Janusz has said Manchester City are going to win the title. Let's stay with City. I want to talk about them. Erling Haaland, must he start every game until the end of the season now?
Well, he does. I mean, he has been, right? I mean, he's been a clear number one choice for now. So I don't see it any different. The difference you and I have talked about is how great Manchester City can be even when he doesn't. So, I mean, that's the beauty. The plan A, plan B, plan C, and, whatever it may be. It's still not just Erling Haaland. It's everybody else around him playing tremendous football at the right time. Everybody's healthy with the exception of Phil Foden. And think about that. When he becomes an option again, when he comes back, and we all know that he can give you such quality from the start or from the bench, and you can trust it. So at this moment, firing on all cylinders. And that's what football is all about, right? Get your team playing and your players playing at the highest level when it matters. Not in the beginning of the season, not in the middle of the season. You can hide some players, and Manchester City have that ability. And that's the beauty of Manchester City, that they can hide 1 or 2 or 3 players when they're not at their best.
It's a demanding fixture list for them. We did see that obviously this was a 3-1 win over Leicester, but I suppose you could still see where there would be some concerns for Pep Guardiola. Do you have any concerns for Man City going forward, and what are they?
I have zero concerns right now. We saw Leicester City coming into it late, but I mean, he withdrew just about everybody that's important. It doesn't really matter. The 2 players, if he decided to keep just Rodri in and De Bruyne, I mean, Leicester City wouldn't even come close. That's where they lost that little bit of control, because key players were out. And, if you take Grealish out and John Stones, who's been absolutely superb coming back and playing new positions, such an intelligent player, not easy to step into that midfield and all of a sudden play at a level that he does. So I don't have any concerns right now, other than, there could be a game that is going to be an inexplicable game where they drop points simply because they can't finish. That's the only reason I see that. Bayern Munich is going to be still nervous, even at 3-0, but they're going to see that through. And then, I just Sheffield United, I mean, it's important, but not for City, right? I mean, that competition they can deal without, I suppose. But my goodness, you and I, after Manchester City against Arsenal, I'll tell you then for sure who's going to win it.
No, you've told us now. You've said Manchester City.
Right now, Manchester City for me are favorites, no doubt about it. And by the way, as I've said before, it has nothing to do with the necessarily drop points.
Thank you very much for watching ESPNFC on YouTube. For more highlights, analysis, and exclusive content, be sure to subscribe.